I like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called Agatha Christie's Crooked House. Probably the newer version. It came out 2017. Spoiler alert, let's just get it. So we start off with somebody going to the movie theaters. This guy by the name of Charles Haywood. And he's watching this movie about a documentary. A guy by the name of artist Leonidas. He was giving his backstory about him and his family, about how he married this chick named Brenda. Now he's chilling with his granddaughter Sophia. Apparently he was a rich man. So we find out he's a private investigator. He's got a special client waiting for him inside. This client just happened to be Sophia herself. But the thing is, he's not really too pleased to see her. Come to find out she's here because her grandfather passed away, and she thinks somebody killed him. But she don't want to go to the police because bottom line is they got money, they probably got connects on the inside, so she went to a private investigator. But the reason she went to Charles is because they met each other back when they was in Egypt, in Cairo to be exact. And they had a bond, he ended up giving her the business. But the thing is, she left him back in Cairo, so he feeling some type of way. So Charles really doesn't want to take the case, but his secretary's like, come on, she got money, and we need it around here. So later on, he goes and talks to the chief inspector, and they find out Aristode's cause of death was an injection that gave him a heart attack. So later on, Charles thinks about his position, and he decides to take the case. So he's riding up to the house, the Leonidas estate. And the first person he meets is this lady by the name Miss Edith. She's been trying to kill all these moles in the backyard, and nothing seems to work, so she's been getting a shotgun and trying to shoot them niggas. And then Sophia comes to get a tour of the house. Then she takes him to her grandfather's room and lets him do his investigating. Then we find out Sophia has two other siblings. Little girl by the name of Josephine, and she claims she knows all the secrets of the house. She likes playing detective, and she carries around this notebook where she writes down everything that she's seen going on in the house. But she wants Charles to figure out what's going on. You're the head lead, the detective man. Then he talks to this lady by the name of Magda. Magda is a mother of three. Her oldest Sophia, the youngest Josephine, and a son by the name of Eustace. Magda's supposed to be like an actor, but she's had like a failed career or something like that. But I guess she was popping back in the day. She's married to this guy by the name of Philip. I think Philip was Aristode's brother or something like that. My bad, I lost track of the relation. Charles talked to Philip, but he really doesn't get a whole lot out of him. Then he runs into Edith again. Edith gives him tips about the house. Then he runs into a lady by the name of Clementine. And then he meets her husband, Roger. Now, Roger, off the back, thinks Brenda's the culprit. He can't stand her. But Clementine's like, man, cut that shit out. She explains to Charles that her husband, Roger, is so rambunctious. Then he talks to the nanny, and the nanny tells him that the kids had a tutor by the name of Mr. Brown. And we find out she's really like the only member of the staff there. Other staff work, but they just come and go. She's the only one that stays at the house. And Sophia right there is talking to Mr. Brown, aka Lawrence. But before he can get to him, he gets to another person. He talks to Brenda herself. So her backstory is this. She used to be a dancer or a stripper in Las Vegas. Audience ran into her. They got to talking, and that's how it happened. She was crying because she was tired of being a dancer. She thought she was being humiliated. And she's like, I can't dance with you. But he told her she could do whatever he wants because he owns the damn place. Now, why does he own places in Las Vegas? I'm not exactly sure. So nobody in the family really liked her anyway because of her stature. They really can't stand her, and half the family actually thinks she killed him. But what makes it worse is she's trying to give a confession. Because she assumed she was the last person in the room with him. She would always give him his medicine through needles. And because of the fact he was poisoned, she thinks she probably mixed up the vials by accident or something. So I know Charles thinking like, damn, this probably would be a good reason to think she's the culprit. But the problem is, there's no motive. Then we get this flashback when Charles was in Cairo like about 18 months ago. And this guy gives him clues about Sophia. Now back then, Sophia went by a different last name because she didn't want people snooping around about her family. Well, this dude found out he's been getting along well with Sophia. I guess he's from Internal Affairs or something. Because he lets him know, hey, if you want to be a part of CIA, intelligence and whatnot, keep dealing with Sophia. Then we get back to present time, and he talks one-on-one with Mr. Brown, aka Lawrence. He tells us something about Artius being in a crisis, something about business, but that's the big thing we get from him. Out in the courtyard, he talks to Sophia again. He tells her that he met up with Mr. Brown. And then Josephine tells Charles that she's got evidence that Mr. Brown was giving Brenda the business, affairs and dalliances and all that shit. Now apparently she had some love letters or something like that, but for some reason Charles didn't pursue it. Afterwards, he went back to talking to Miss Edith, and Miss Edith showed him the way out. The one person he never talked to in their house was Eustace. But as Charles was leaving, who the heck is following him? But no, the person was making sure that he left. Later on, he called somebody in the force, his friend by the name of Brent. Probably just to get some more information and whatnot. But as he was heading home, Sophia met him at the door. She took him to this nightclub. They was all dancing and partying, and then she was telling him more about her grandpa. Apparently, her grandpa was a philanderer, and he owned a lot of different properties, including that Las Vegas Strip. They danced the night away, bringing back Egypt memories. Couple days later, back at the house, we talked to their personal lawyer. Well, Charles does. He talks to the beneficiary man. So we find out somebody was supposed to sign off on the will. Well, Artius was, but the thing was, he died before he could sign it off on it. So if nobody signed off on it, the will's automatically go to his wife. Bottom line, Brenda gets all the money. There you go, motive for you. But later on, he ends up going to this catering spot, which is apparently another spot that Aristotle owned. The thing is, Clementine and Roger were the ones that handled that part of the estate. Roger had to borrow money from Aristotle all the time, and he was tired of doing it. The thing is, the business can't be afloat since he's dead. Aristotle ended up giving him a check for $2 million to keep it going. But Clementine told him to destroy the check. Crazy thing is, he had to check the entire time, he never used it. And then just like that, he ripped it up in front of Charles. Josephine doing her usual snooping around. Why is she snooping in on her mother though? Oh no, she was snooping on Clementine. She ain't doing nothing but just polishing her nails. And then the nanny catches her, tells her to go do something constructive. What the heck is this? Charles being followed again? So he gets to the phone booth, talks to Brenda again, who just happens to be right next to him in the same damn phone booth. What is this? Well, anyway, he talks about audience having enemies and stuff like that too, because he had money, but he also had connects. It goes all the way back to one of the world wars and how it made sense for him to buy that property in Las Vegas to liquidate some of his money or something like that. And then both of them get the guy that was following Charles. Turns out this goofball works for the chief. You're not a very good tailor, are you? You piece of filth. He sent them to protect him, but he's like, yeah, dude, you're a clown. And he dismisses that goofball out the office. So they're doing their own private investigations on their own, but the thing is they need Charles to keep doing it. Because he's got Sophia's influence and he can actually get in the house. So basically he tells her to keep doing what he's doing. Then he goes to talk to Sophia again. And Sophia apparently knew about the dalliances between Mr. Brown and Brenda, or at least so she says. Then we got Josephine in a little treehouse, who she spied on. Then she talks to Charles again. She tells her that he made up the letters. She's like, she lied about ain't no love letters. But is she really lying, or is she telling the truth? Then the nanny comes out and tells her hot chocolate's ready, but Josephine don't even like hot chocolate. She only drinks it just to appease the nanny. And then finally, Charles gets to talk to Eustace. Now, Eustace also knew about the dalliances between Brenda and Mr. Brown, supposedly. But then he asks him, were you smashing my sister, Sophia? But he doesn't even dignify that with a response. Then he goes back to Clementine's room to ask questions. But then she tries to push him out the room so quickly, what's the hurry? But as he leaves out the room, he's looking out the window. What the heck is this? Who's burning evidence? Come on, who is it? Sophia, what the heck are you doing? You messing with the investigation? But she reassures Charles that they were like old things from her grandfather's memoirs. They had nothing to do with the case. A likely story, but how the heck we supposed to know that? So Charles about to dip out, but unfortunately his car won't start. Sophia tells him he can spend the night while they fix his car up in the morning. And then everybody's gathered around the table to have dinner. A lot of stuff gets aired out, including most people's hate for Brenda. Clementine and Roger try to get the hell out of here so they can start their own life. Everybody thinks Mr. Brown's been giving Brenda the business. And considering she about to get all the money, everybody thinks her and Mr. Brown gonna dip out and get the hell out of here. After dinner, Brenda goes to Charles's room. Charles tells her, look man, just get yourself a lawyer, you gonna be alright. Sophia catches both of them and then she runs off. Charles says, look man, ain't nothing like that. They get into an argument about Cairo. She ends up kissing him, but then she runs off into her room. Later on he hears footsteps, he finds his little attic. He finds Josephine in there like, the fuck you doing in there? But he don't get no answers and she comes back down. Later on that night while everybody's asleep, Charles goes to the treehouse. He finds all the stuff that Josephine had there, including the telescope he looks into, and he sees Mr. Brown giving Brenda the business officially. Next day, Charles has breakfast, and Charles had a mark on his face. Edith tells him, like, oh, were you wrestling with the dogs? You lucky the dogs like you because they're trained to kill. He goes to the mechanic. Apparently, he's missing some type of spark plug. Did somebody take it out? Why the fuck was it missing? Did somebody want her to stay? Charles ended up getting a call. He had to go back to his chief, and they brought in this guy who was supposed to be Artemis's friend. And the beneficiary is there, too. So apparently, we find out there was another will that was drawn up. And who's supposed to be getting most of the money? Your homegirl, Sophia. So now we're getting even more curious. What the hell was she burning out in the courtyard? Then while they're there, the police are alerted that Sophia had an accident. I mean, not Sophia, Josephine was almost killed. But by who? And why would anybody try to kill Josephine? Apparently the rope was cut on her steps to the treehouse, and she either fell or somebody pushed her off. She's in the hospital recovering. Who is that looking over in the distance? Is that Lawrence? Why is he just standing there like that? Was Lawrence trying to get rid of Josephine? What for? Lawrence goes to check in the house. Charles goes to check in the house. And we find Edith in Josephine's room. What the heck is she doing in there? And she ends up hiding one of her books. Why is she hiding her book? She claims she can still do stuff in her house at the same time. Like, alright, this is a crime scene now. And then Edith ends up leaving the room. And then the beneficiary man comes and lets everybody know that Sophia getting most of the money. Philip's pissed off. Not at Sophia, but at the fact that Arstan would do this shit. Later on, Charles finds out why Sophia left him in Cairo, my bad. Turns out she knew he was spying on her, trying to get that CIA intelligence badge. And then she's thinking to herself, Charles doesn't trust her. Because obviously she's getting most of the money and Brenda's getting a piece of it. And everybody else in the family got left out. But he's having his doubts. I mean, think about it. Sophia's getting most of the money. She was burning books outside. And you gotta understand, before this, the entire family comes off shady. Sophia was just on a chill shit. So he's kind of conflicted right now. So he talks to the chief inspector. And he's like, look, man, if you try to protect your little girlfriend, you gotta give me some proof that Mr. Brown and Brenda were doing things. Now, you said Josephine said something about some love letters, right? Whether it's true or not, they gotta find out something. So he remembers when Josephine was in the attic and he's about to go up there and find out something. They get to the top of that state. Hell of a sight, right? Then he finds this box up there. The box contained the love letters. Now they got all they need. Brenda's going down. The guards arrest Brenda. Lawrence is already in the paddy wagon. And she keeps going back and forth about her being set up. So everybody's relieved the culprit's finally been caught. But where the heck is Edith going? All of a sudden, Josephine's back. She's looking just fine. No broken bones. None of that shit. So Charles back in the office. Case solved. Everything's fine. But there's something not sitting quite right with him. So the nanny goes back in the room and check on Josephine. Josephine's crying out she can't find her notebook. Wait a minute. Is that what Miss Edith was looking through? Then we see Miss Edith at a doctor's office. She's got some type of illness. Apparently, she's only got a couple more months to live. Back then, they didn't say what kind of illness this is. But when you hear something like that, 9 times I think you think some type of cancer, right? Later on, Josephine gets consoled by her sister Sophia. Later on, she starts doing ballerina in the hallway. Edith chilling outside, reflecting on life. Next day, Charles gets a call. And we see the nanny laying on the floor, done deal, dead as shit. Who the hell would kill the nanny? Well, apparently somebody did because the hot chocolate was poisoned. So bottom line after all this, the killer's still on the loose. And that's probably gonna let Mr. Brown and Brenda off the hook. Ain't nobody leaving until we figure this shit out. Everybody's in the room all distraught about the nanny. But Josephine was probably convinced that nanny stole her notebook. I'm like, really? So Charles gets her alone by herself. Now, Josephine throughout the movie always tells him that she knows lots of things. He's like, look, you better start telling me something. But then Miss Edith comes out of nowhere and lets Charles know the chief is looking for him. So they talk to this guy and they find out the tea had cyanide in it. Now, why would anybody keep cyanide in his house? And he tells them usually cyanide is like something to kill moles. Kill moles? Wait a minute. So now he's going around looking for Miss Edith, but she's making a getaway with her and Josephine. Charles ends up going to this one part of the house where the garden is or something like that. He looks at this one cabinet, he finds cyanide and all that. Then he lifts over this pot that has a ton of grains. He digs through it, he finds Josephine's notebook. But why was Miss Edith trying to hide her notebook? So he gets Sophia, gets to the car, and sees a letter in the car. And the letter has Miss Edith confessing to the killing. But why would she just leave a letter confessing? So they start reading the notebook, and it turns out Josephine was actually the one that killed her grandfather. What in all of the fuck? So her explanation is this. She wanted to be a ballerina, but her grandfather never would let her. And it was unfair to her, especially when all the other people in her family were actually doing it. It didn't help the fact that he married a stripper who loves to dance anyway. So this is how Brenda got framed. She was usually giving her husband an insulin, but Josephine mixed his insulin with eye drops. And that's how he got a heart attack and his heart gave out. So you use some revenge shit all just because you couldn't be a ballerina? Are you serious? So what about the letters? It turns out Josephine is pretty good at copying handwriting skills to make it look like Brenda's handwriting. So the letters were fake. So what about somebody trying to kill Josephine? Turns out she cut the rope herself and purposely fell out the treehouse. Then we find out Josephine killed the nanny, but why? Turns out she thought the nanny was just pretentious and she just couldn't stand her. Why is that a reason to kill niggas? What in all the fuck is wrong with Josephine? Man, this little girl got problems. So basically the reason for the confession letter is because Miss Edith was going to take the rap for everything that Josephine did. My thing is this, we saw Sophia burn some work or whatever like that, right? Why wasn't Miss Edith smart enough to just burn the fucking book? That's kind of got me baffled. Bottom line, they end up catching up to Miss Edith. She got tarred up the road. She's balling around here. They get to this cliff. What the fuck is Miss Edith about to do? Nah, you can't do this. Josephine's in the car. And then she ends up going up the fucking cliff. You gotta be shitting me. And just to let us know, it was a long cliff. It was a big-ass explosion. Now, Miss Edith knew she was about to die, but still, you could have let Josephine get out the fucking car. Damn, that pissed me off. So my thing is, this is back in the day. Yes, she was a 12-year-old, but she killed 2 people, right? So would she have got jail time? Would they just hung her? What would they would have done to Josephine? That whole experience had me like, damn, I did not expect this ending. Agatha Christie's Crooked House on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. Like these, y'all, easy, man. Stop. Sissy, big. You got this slogan.